this session. All right. A very good evening, everyone, and welcome to today's blockchain career sharing session organized by Blockchain at NTU. We appreciate you taking the time to join us tonight. My name is Reese, and I'll be the moderator for today's session. So what's special about today's event is that it is not only a career talk, but also an NTU alumni sharing session, as I have with me a panel of gentlemen who graduated from NTU and are now pursuing a career in blockchain. From this session, you will gain insight from our panelists' personal journey and experience, learn more about the current blockchain industry, and the type of careers and how you can prepare yourself effectively for it. Blockchain is a core technology in the fintech space that has seen many applications across industries, and as such, there will be a great chance that all of this will be very applicable to you, no matter your degree. Now, let me formally introduce our panel of speakers. First, we have Alex, who was a EEE alumnus from the class of 2019, and is actually one of the co-founders of Blockchain at NTU. Now, he is a cryptographic engineer working on scalable and private blockchains, specializing in zero-knowledge proofs. He used to audit smart contracts at Consensus, conducted scalability research at Kyber Network, and built a tokenization framework at IBM Research. A fun fact is that he co-designed an unrestricted elective course here at NTU and has been teaching it for the last 2 years. Second, we have Arthur, who is one of the few prominent crypto investors with a unique background spanning crypto, startup, and oil trading. He graduated from NTU with a major in economics and a minor in entrepreneurship. He is now the founding partner of Defiance Capital, one of the most active and recognized crypto venture funds focusing on DeFi, decentralized finance, and Web3 gaming globally. Prior to his venture into the crypto space, he was a trader in the trader development program in BP, one of the largest oil and gas companies in the world. And during his university time, he was the VP of Investment Club, where he led the investment team to provide top investment insights to the student population. And lastly, we have Yusho, who is the co-founder and CEO of one of Singapore's market-leading platform for access to crypto, Coinhaco. As a Singaporean entrepreneur that started the idea in Silicon Valley, Coinhaco is backed by renowned investors such as Tim Draper and Boost VC. And Yusho is now mainly responsible for Coinhaco's corporate strategy, investor relations, as well as its business development and expansion. And he graduated from NTU with a Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering. With that, please give a round of applause to our speakers. And now, before we continue, I'd also like to share the flow for today's session. First, we'll start off by getting to know the speakers a little more and their background as they share more about their experiences in their career. We'll then move on to talk about the current blockchain landscape in Singapore, discuss the types of careers that you can expect, and finally cover a few pieces of valuable advice before we conclude with a Q&A session where the speakers will be answering questions submitted by you guys, the audience. And during the session, do feel free to key in your questions using the Slido code that is at the bottom right of the screen right now. This allows you to vote for the most popular question that you want the speakers to answer later on. I'll be keeping an eye on any relevant questions that may be submitted along the way, but if not, we will address them during the dedicated Q&A session. And on a side note, we also have a surprise for all participants who are here today, which I'll review at the end of the session, so do stay tuned to the very end. And as an official disclaimer, everything that will be discussed is purely for educational purposes, and in any case, you should not take any opinion as any form of financial advice, but rather always do your own research. And without further ado, let me shift the spotlight back onto our panel of distinguished NTU alumni for tonight. Welcome Alex, Arthur, and Yusho once again. I think just to start things off, let's help our audience to get a bit more familiar with each one of you. Could you please briefly give us an idea of your typical day and what about your job excites you every day? Maybe Yusho, do you want to start or?
Yep, sure. Yeah, thanks for having me, Riz, and the rest of the blockchain at NTU. Yeah, so my name is Yusho, co-founder, CEO of Coinhako. I've been running this platform. I've been in the crypto space since mid 2014, so it's been a while. But yeah, along the way, during different stages of the company, I spend my days differently, right? But I think these days, I would say, because the companies are pretty sizable now, we're about 180 packs. So what happens these days, I really have to optimize my time. I come in pretty early in the morning. That's when I clear all my admin emails, and typically my meetings and my day starts at 9+. Yeah, but more recently, I'm more managing people, so I've been taking a lot of time doing interviews, as the team expands. But I think more importantly, why it excites me every day is because I'm I'm running my own business, and I'm in an industry that I'm passionate about, having fun, and most importantly, I work with people with common denominators, right? And I think I'm sure all of you agree, like the space is never stagnant. So I think that's why I'm still in the space.
Very nice. Arthur, would you like to share next?
Yeah. Hi, this is Arthur here. I'm the founding partner of Defiance Capital. So I would say my typical day, there are some part that is always different, and there are some part that will be quite similar. We are active in both the liquid market and also the venture side. So I think typical days of the work, you will check what happened in the market, like any major market news or movement that might affect the industry either in the short to medium or long term. We don't trade, but given how fast moving the crypto market is, we still pay attention to the market movement and to see if we are missing out on some of the major theme or narrative that we should be paying attention to. So definitely I will spend some time looking at the market, going on Twitter. So right now, almost all of the major news and intellectual discussion happen on Twitter nowadays. So it's quite crucial, I would say, for most important people in crypto to have an active Twitter presence. Either even you're just following, it's still important to have a Twitter account. So yeah, going on Twitter, interacting with people, seeing what's happening, what are people talking about. And another part is just to going through all the venture deals that we are being pitched to. So there is a lot of them. On average, since obviously the month-on-month number can be different, but since second half last year, we have seen a massive increase in the deals that come to our table. On average, we need to evaluate 80 to 100 deals a month. So obviously, I'm not doing this myself. I have a team of analysts to help me go through and stuff, but we will have a bi-weekly meeting to discuss this, to see whether we are going to invest and also to discuss some market matters. Yeah, and lastly, there are some operation and management stuff, which is part and parcel of any business. Yep.
Great. And finally, Alex.
Yeah, thanks, Riz, and thanks for the club for hosting this event. And hello, everyone. This is Alex. First, I have to apologize for not showing up on the camera. I had a mild fever and mild food poisoning, so I'm not feel a little bit under the weather. So during the whole discussion, if my voice sounds shaky or weird, forgive me for that. And then currently, I'm working as a cryptographic engineer, basically software engineer specialized in cryptography in a Silicon Valley startup. And the nice thing about it, like you will observe in the space, is that a lot of these teams and companies are highly distributed, and so are we. We have members from all over the world. So my typical day starts with meetings with the U.S. folks, usually in the Bay Area and also in Boston. So because I'm an engineer, so most of these meetings will be engineering oriented, mostly product oriented, or sometimes some open source libraries that we're pushing out. So we'll have to discuss the pull requests, the issues that we're going to do, and also synced up because it's the team span across different time zones. Other than the typical, after the meeting, there'll definitely be a lot of coding throughout the day, just like any typical software engineer will be. And also, I will dedicate some time for crypto Twitter, like Arthur mentioned, to keep myself up to date. Other than that, I would also add on. I listen to a lot of podcasts. For example, like the ZK podcaster has been really good. So an Epicenter is also another very good podcast. And now there's been increasing amount. Now, A16Z, the VC firm, also have its own, dedicated crypto podcast, which I also recommend. So yeah, that's about me.
Cool. Thanks so much for all your personal introductions. Yeah, I see that Twitter is definitely a popular platform for the crypto community, and you guys all have pretty diverse itineraries. So now maybe we'll dive a little bit deeper to learn more about how you guys found your interest to do the work that you guys find meaningful today as well. Because in the audience, I'm sure we have people who are just joining the blockchain space and they may not be sure what it is like. So to go back to your beginnings, maybe I'll continue with you, Alex. Cryptography is definitely a core facet of blockchain, but I'd like to hear from you what exactly made you want to specialize in this niche and technical aspect and stay in this area of cryptography all these years.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, thanks for the question. So unlike many cryptographer who gets into crypto, cryptocurrency as a cryptographer, I'm from the other way around. I started with cryptocurrency first, and get introduced to a lot of the underlying mathematics and cryptography, and then I get basically hooked. One of the main reason is I saw a so-called beauty in asymmetry. So there are two levels to that. One is in the mathematical level. For example, in a simple case of one-way function, it's easy to compute, a function, but it's hard to revert it, right? Like a hash function or something like that. And also like encryptions, it's easy if you have the decryption key to decrypt it, but if you don't, then it's even if a really powerful adversary, it's really hard for you to do so. And that asymmetry creates a second layer of which is the asymmetry in power, which gives even if you are just normal Joe and Jane walking on the street, you don't have a lot of these mathematical background. You are still in power to protect yourself against even the strongest adversaries or hackers in the world using cryptography. So that's kind of the societal impact that I see in cryptography that kind of attracts me, continuously. And I think like security and privacy has always been, at my heart of what interests me. So yeah, what keeps me also keep doing cryptography in the blockchain space is there are a lot of really smart people, really smart cryptographers from academia and also from the industry that are shifting their focus because blockchain has been such a new area and also many new research topics to be discovered, and so with this new mind power joining in, it's definitely a blast to to ride along. Yeah, so that's basically my answer. Thanks.
Right, thank you. I'm sure most people who are interested in cybersecurity would share the same sentiments as you. I'll circle back now to Yusho. Coinhaco was actually founded back in 2014 as one of Asia's first digital asset wallet services, and the company has come a long way since then, riding through the ups and downs of the crypto market. So Yusho, could you briefly share with us the story behind Coinhaco and what motivated you to stick with your vision all these years?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. So to be honest, I can't really remember the exact reason why, what sparked Coinhako, but when I connected the dots, it all went back to NTU, right? Like during my final year, by chance, I managed to chance upon Bitcoin mining through this PhD student that was going around the lab, and after which I got I read more news, ended up reading the white paper, and then I came together with my co-founder, who's also my CTO and my army buddy, and we decided to start Coinhako after school. So that was right after NTU. I graduated from NTU in 2013, and I think the reason why we decided to create a service like this was because back then access was limited, right? There were hardly any exchanges. It was mostly overseas, including Mount Gox. And my partner was like, hey, maybe you should build something to serve the local market for a couple of reasons. Because back then in Singapore, the government wanted to push Singapore to be a fintech hub, right? And then I think this to me was very important. If you wanted a business running, you need support from the government, right? And over the years, what kept me going was crypto. Yes, it's volatile, right? We've gone through two winters, but adoption was not slowing down, right? The numbers were going up. So I think there were tough times in the business, but I think me and my partner, we had this promise that give ourselves 5 years, right? I think that's a fair number of time if you're going to commit to a project. So it turned out well, but I think more importantly, what keeps me going, I'm sure everyone else agrees, but there are a lot of smart people quitting the TradFi traditional tech companies to join crypto, right? And I think that to me is a very bullish signal, and which is why I'm still very, very optimistic about the space.
Right, thank you. And moving on now to the DeFi space, Arthur, on your company's main page, it states, we invest in DeFi eating traditional finance. I think that shares what Yusho just shared, and I believe you feel strongly about this. So Arthur, could you share what made you choose to start an investment fund, especially one that is focused on crypto assets versus a traditional one? Arthur, I think you're muted. Yeah.
I always have a passion in investing. This is evidence from my participation in the NTU investment clubs when I was in NTU. And so building on my almost, when I started crypto investing, I've been investing for 7 years. A bit disillusioned with the stock market, especially the Singapore stock market, because I think it's actually one of the worst stock market to invest in. It's still the case right now. And crypto as an asset class captured my attention, and after doing a lot of research, I believe in the potential of this asset class, and I think it's also one of the very few asset class where retail are not at a massive disadvantage compared to professionals. I think it's still the case, although it has also gotten slightly more difficult, but you are still hearing a lot of stories where retail outperform the professionals consistently, even now. So so the reason I started the fund is also building on the success of my and track record of my crypto investment. I started out investing on a personal basis, but over the years I survived the bear market of 2018 and 2019, and I've been able to build on the success of that and my reputation as one of the earliest DeFi community participant and investor. So that lead me to launching Defiance Capital. So it's not a conscious decision, because launching a fund comes with a lot more responsibilities and a lot of other issues as well. But it's some of the natural progress culminating of my years of investment experience. And why crypto asset over a traditional one? Because I believe that crypto is a new asset class that offer a lot of potential and also a lot of the advantage for investors compared to the traditional asset class. Obviously, it offers a higher return that accompany with a higher risk and volatility as well. But overall, I think that if you are an active investors, you usually will find a lot of good things to love about crypto as an asset class. Yep.
All right. Thanks so much, panelists, for sharing more about your background. Hope the audience get a better picture of your experiences, and we'll definitely share more along the way. So I think moving on to the second segment, which I think now zooming out for a little bit, we'll talk more about the current blockchain landscape here in Singapore. The interest in the fintech sector started to grow only a few years ago, and blockchain emerged as a core technology that's really driving this boom. Even now, we see many MNCs in the financial sector also hiring for more engineers in the technology departments. So Yusho, I'm aware that you were featured in a segment during this year's Singapore Fintech Festival, which is the largest fintech festival in the world, organized by the Monetary Authority of Singapore. They brought together an international audience for the development of financial services, public policy, and technology. So you're probably quite familiar with the vibrant Singapore fintech ecosystem. So Yusho, could you talk more about the fintech industry in Singapore, how it has changed over the past 5 years, and the role that blockchain plays? And to follow up with that, maybe what's the most interesting trend to you?
Yeah, I think case in point, right? You call it a Fintech festival, but I think truthfully, I'm sure all of you know, like this year, or just the one that passed in November, it was more like a Web3 festival. Like most of the participants were from blockchain or Web3 community. Whereas the previous years, yeah, it was more Fintech festival. And I believe, yeah, the FinTech Festival has been going on for about 5 years or so now, and yeah, I would say that the word FinTech has been coined decades ago, but I think the, the revolution only started post Web 2, and but based on just observation, I feel that today it's sort of consumed by crypto, right? A lot of the financial innovations are done via crypto versus fintech, and yeah, just looking at you mentioned trend, right? So I think the most interesting trend for 2021 was I think the emergence of DeFi and I think crypto culture. So crypto culture meaning crypto used to be purely investing, right, on projects, tokens. But I think today, crypto, it's a much more broader industry where it covers gaming, it covers entertainment, which covers music, collectibles, so and so forth, right? So I think it's becoming more culture, and yeah, and this to me is bigger than just trading as an asset.
Right. Thank you. And Arthur, I think I would like you to build on that. In your field of work, I believe that you have to keep pace with the latest blockchain projects in the industry. So from your experience and research knowledge, can you talk about some of the more popular and impactful applications of blockchain that you see in Singapore and where you see the industry headed in the next 5 years?
I think I think there will be two most impactful. The first one is still decentralized finance. I think we are just getting started, and in a very short amount of time, we have seen how fast DeFi have grown. Albeit that recently have a bit of headwind, so the growth has slowed down. But that's on the back of the size that DeFi has right now. Like DeFi collectively have more than $200 billion of total value locked. So, and all of this growth come in less than 2 years. So I think that a lot of the investment options, not just investment, financial management options offered by DeFi is actually superior to both the traditional finance and DeFi, especially as a lot of the younger generation are more familiar with their wealth being a purely digital concept. I think that a lot more consumers will find more benefit in using decentralized finance application as opposed to fintech or even traditional financial instrument. Yeah, I think that I think the older gen will not move so easily, but the younger gen that grew up will be increasingly more open to denominate more of their wealth in the decentralized finance space. So that's one. Another one I think is NFT. I think NFT is simply a standard to establish digital ownership, and we can see a lot of the sectors being impacted by this. I think the three main categories are, first of all, games. Second one is arts, and third is musics. I think, except the first one, the two music and art, and to a other extent, other intellectual property, have traditionally been hard to monetize, and it's also not easy to lead to a sustainable living for the content creators. I think NFT changes by establishing like a perpetual royalty for the content creators, and also injecting liquidity into the digital asset and intellectual property will allow the content creators to be able to really make this a full-time job and while sustain themselves at the same time. So I think these two will be the biggest impact of blockchain to Singapore. To give a more concrete examples, as an NTU student, I'm sure some of you pay attention to the annual graduate survey. As a matter of fact, the ADM school have the lowest average and median salary. It's just a market forces that works. So I think with the rise of NFT, a very talented artist or illustrator will be able to have generate better earnings from running his own freelance NFT works and uploading into a blockchain, generating NFT for sales will definitely be way higher than average of 3K salary a month, as long as they know how to engage with the community, do a bit of marketing to build their profiles, use Twitter, engage some high profile people to get some promotion in. So I think this is a big changes that will impact the industry in Singapore in the long term. Yeah. And I think the industry will continue to grow in the next 5 years in many categories. Yeah, the two I mentioned just now being the most prominent one.
Right. Yeah, I think we definitely do see in headlines some students who are earning millions, selling their NFT collections for them. So now moving back on to Alex, more specifically, the importance of zero knowledge proofs has been growing. Prominent entities are investing heavily in layer 2 scaling solutions. And we looked at Polygon, who has partnered with EY, Ernst & Young in the Nightfall project, as well as Loopring, who uses zero knowledge proofs in their ZK rollups, their zero knowledge rollups. So Alex, could you share more with everyone some information about the latest developments in the community and the kind of future that you envision for blockchain security and zero knowledge proofs?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So before I talk about zero knowledge proofs and related texts, I definitely resonate a lot with what Arthur has described. I joined the crypto space. I want to talk about the trend a little bit. I joined the crypto space not as early as Yusho did. I joined around like 2016. Back at that time, most people are talking about all fancy applications in different verticals, from decentralized, DAO to governance, to voting, and to IoT. A lot of those applications. And then in 2017, there's the ICO boom. Everyone is trying to raise some money. Of course, there are scammers, but that was the boom where we first realized even Ethereum and a lot of the other blockchains. Well, there aren't that many, but it's not scalable enough. So that's when the community as a whole start investing a lot of efforts and brain power into becoming more scalable. And so there's a new wave of say solution like Plasma, state channels, and also eventually leads up to rollups. At the time, I've been trying to follow as much as I could to every frontier in the space. But when I graduated, I tried to shift my focus a little bit and turn away from the crazy and buzzword, the crypto space, the blockchain space with crypto buzzword. And I try to focus on cryptography as an academic, more endeavor. But then when I turned back, in 2019 or in 2020, what I realized is what Arthur described: the rise of DeFi, NFT, and DAO. So what's different? The trend has been, back in 2017 or 2018, most people or a lot of the teams, a lot of startups are promoting their new layer ones, right? They're saying that we have a more scalable layer ones. For example, Zilliqa is doing sharding, and Near protocol is also doing a different type of sharding. However, in the last 2 years, a year and a half, I would say, there is really a boom in the product level, not on the infrastructure level. So you see protocols like Compound and Uniswap and Aave, DYDX coming to the play and really bring this product to even wider adoptions. So that's one of the trends that I see. Other than that, another major difference between like the 2017 boom and also and the DeFi boom is that there's a lot more institution buy-in, not just for the CryptoPunks or for the misfits or for the outliers. It became more mainstreams, and a lot of the institutions that start investing in heavily and hitting mainstream headlines like Elon Musk or Mark Cuban, prominent figures like that. And also there has been a lot of regulation and compliance work, along with this, since SEC has, see the 2017 ICO boom as, something that they have to deal with. And so, there's a lot of work on that. There are a lot of tools and services being built to offering access and also development and analysis of these, crypto products like Doom and Analytics, or TRM. They offer, a compliance and also, query services to these blockchains. So that's also one of the trends. So let me come back to the question of, you're saying security and ZK piece and their trend. I think one major trend, like you mentioned, is the rollups. So ZK rollup is one of the most promising scaling solutions nowadays. And basically using zero knowledge proof, you offload a lot of the computation offline and only upload a cryptographic proofs on the layer 1 to be verified, which the verification should be succinct and gas efficient, relatively to compared to processing all the transaction individually on layer 1. So many flavors of rollups comes out of the woodwork, and so I think rollup is definitely the future of scaling. So that's what I've been keeping my eye on and also working on. And also, other than that, there's also bridges and cross-chain protocols. Has been they have a new renaissance, I would say. A lot more bridges comes out. But when it comes to security, of course, these cross-chain products are mostly harder to audit. And we've seen numerous cases in the last 2 years that bridges or cross-chain protocols lost millions of dollars. So, in terms of security and ZKP wise, those are the things that I'm keeping my eyes on. Yeah.
Right. Thanks for sharing those insights. And I think you guys have been quite optimistic, in the growth of the industry. So maybe we can have you can talk also a little bit more about the challenges that the blockchain community is also facing in terms of trying to get to where the community envision things to be, right? I think Arthur earlier mentioned how the older generation may not be as savvy, they may not be able to get on board with having their assets in the new crypto assets. And I guess another concern could be when there are so many types of zero knowledge rollups. I think there are multiple projects. There may be quite a fragmented industry or a community of different projects. So for everyone, it's open to all panelists. So what are some challenges that the industry still needs to solve in order to face the future? And you guys can speak to your individual areas of expertise.
I guess I can start. So when it comes to, just to pick up where I left off, when it comes to rollups and bridges, like I said, anything, there are multiple threat models and also security assumptions that people make about cross-chain protocols, and it's been not only hard to analyze them, and one of the challenges that I've been trying to put my attention on is how do we consolidate both privacy as well as composability. So you can imagine you have Zcash that supports private payments, anonymous payments. So where you can verify a certain transaction is valid without knowing who sent it to whom and how much. However, if you want to compose this payment network with other DeFi protocols like Uniswap or maybe Compound or these lending protocols, then it's much harder to achieve privacy in those protocol. And on top of that, if you want to compose, which atomic composability is one of the big reasons why DeFi and so-called these money Lego, right, took off, right? So, and how do we maintain that composability while increasing the privacy and privacy of these protocols has been a big challenge. Other than that, I would also say compliance-wise, will also will be a head-on fight. As you can see, I think Coinbase CEO Brian CEO has been quite active on their engagement with the SEC and how SEC forced them to delay their launch of a lending protocol, things like that. So compliance will be another challenge. I'll keep my answer short. Yeah.
Yep. I think I can add on to that, right? I think first and foremost, I think Web3 innovation, it's unstoppable. It's moving so rapidly, right? And it comes to a point, because I sit in a spot where I'm between the old and new world. I'm the bridge, right? So I have to appease both sides. I think to add on to what Alex said earlier, I think regulation is most apparent, right? Regulators are always playing catch up, and it is a challenge. It is challenging to balance the innovation as well as the requirement and education on the regulatory side.
Right, and Arthur, maybe you want to share with regards to venture fund investments?
Maybe you went to the bathroom.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
No worries about that. I think we can just move on to the next segment first, where we will be delving deeper into the different types of careers in the industry. And the purpose is for students who may be unsure of what a career in the industry might look like, and they can assess their interests. So now I'll be asking some questions for our audience to learn more about the different kind of jobs. In the blockchain industry, we do see jobs that are very similar to those in the traditional finance world. There are software developers and there are equity analysts too. So I think students are curious to know how might these roles be different when they are now in the context of the blockchain space.
Yeah,
And Alex, yeah.
Yeah, I can I can start. So the first thing, well, as an engineer, I'll talk mostly about technical aspects of domains of jobs. We need more EVM wizard. That's one thing I would say. Basically, people who understand EVM extremely well, that can do optimizations and inline assembly very proficiently. And also we need EVM wizard to design new languages and compiler to compile into EVM compatible bytecodes. So if you're starting learning Solidity, don't just write contract all in high level languages. Try to know what's happening under the hood, and try to maybe look at the source code of more complicated system like optimistic or like Optimism or Arbitron. These teams look at their code and understand how EVM works and how they are tweaking their product around the constraint and also the power of EVM. Other than that, I would say in terms of programming languages, you should definitely learn more Rust. If you're a C++ or Haskell developers, then you should have an easier time to learn Rust. Rust has been very important for the newer generation of cryptographic repository and also system repository. And also you can learn WebAssembly because a lot of the runtimes or EVM will also support WASM. So you should probably learn that. I would say from our startups, we're also actively hiring people with a powerful system engineers who have a lot of knowledge in persistent storage. How do you do high availability and low crash rate storage, and also networking in terms of P2P discovery, let's say routing, resolver, caching, and asynchronous parallel computing, things like that. The system engineer is on demand as far as I can see. Right. And other than that, I would say also more cryptographer are definitely welcome. Another two trends that I see. One is there are people who are learning mathematics who are doing like convex optimization, getting to the space. For example, there are a couple of people from Stanford doing analyzing Uniswap, explaining why Uniswap makes sense from a mathematical point of view and from an optimization point of view, and designing new curves. New curve-like project, right? Curve finance project, where the MMN or the automated market maker curve it makes more sense for certain different criteria. For different scenarios. Other than that, I would say product manager is also in dire need, but I would add a prefix, which is kind of someone with like a tech historian type of product manager, someone who has been in the space for quite a while, or at least keep himself up to date and know about the kind of the subculture or of cryptos and knows the the themes of how the space is moving. Those type of PM who have seen good products go and bad products fail and have a basic understanding of what might work and what might have product market fit. Yeah, so that's all.
Right, and Yusho, do you want to add on?
Yeah, sure. I think what Alex touched on is mostly at the protocol coding level, but I think on my end, even though we're in the crypto space, we are more like a hybrid, right? We're more like a product company. So so the roles that's open up that's open in my company range from anything that's technical to non-technical. Specifically for the non-technical role, it's very similar to how product companies have their offerings. So I think baseline, what we look out for would be, people who have the baseline inherent interest in crypto, right? That's the ideal situation, especially in the early days of the company, right? We always look for people who were crypto natives, and that doesn't mean it could be. So I mean I can give you some examples of some of our early colleagues. They worked in they did econs or business, but some of them ended up doing operations, marketing, and I think as long as you have a good understanding of crypto and have a startup mindset, I don't think what you study really matters.
Right. And maybe you could add on to that by describing more about the kind of work culture that exists in the blockchain space. How might it be different from like a traditional tech company? Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So I think blockchain as an industry, right, because of the decentralization and the nature of it, it will likely reshape the organizational culture. As it is, some of the companies, like what Alex mentioned earlier, is totally distributed. But I think in our case, we are more similar to traditional tech, right? Most of our colleagues are based in two locations, Singapore and Vietnam. And I think culture in general is defined, by the company and less of the industry, I'd say.
I see. And Arthur, is your audio fine now?
Yep.
Cool. All right. So going back to you then, I understand that the crypto startup scene has grew and a couple of crypto VCs also started to emerge. For Defiance Capital, it's amazing how it has grown so quickly, even internationally. And at this point, I think there are probably quite a number of students who are interested in an analyst role, but they question whether they need a finance background or an experience in traditional equity research. So could you elaborate on the skills and experience required for the job roles in your field and maybe help us picture how operations at Defiance Capital might be different from traditional venture funds?
I would say there is a lot of similarities with a traditional investment analyst role in the non-crypto investment fund, but there's also some differences. So all the good qualities of investment analyst should apply, which is being a fast learner, having good analytical skills, being able to prioritize works, and curiosity to work crypto. All these will be the important qualities we are looking for. So you do not need to have a finance major, but I think in some situation it will help, just like in a traditional non-crypto fund analyst role. And a lot of the things in crypto, you can actually learn it in a fairly short amount of time, as long as you're really interested. So yeah, in that sense, that's a similarity. The difference is you probably need to be able to relearn and be more flexible. You cannot be married to certain ideas and being fixed on it forever. Like, I would see having a CFA a negative thing for analysts applying for my company, because that 400 hours of study will likely make you pretty inflexible on how you approach investment, your process and your philosophies. There's a lot of things that you need to think in a different way in that sense. But the skill sets are similar, but the mindset will be different. And skills and in a more practical front, we hire both fresh graduates and experienced hires. So it's a mix of both. We just done our most recent recruiting cycle. We hire one fresh graduates. The other three are experienced hire, because being an investment fund, we don't really have a capacity to train people as much as other like the MNC. So even the fresh graduate we hires does have some crypto experience on his own already. So that's on a more practical levels. Yep, I think that's it. I'm happy to elaborate more during the Q&A later on a more specific questions. Yep.
Got it. I think you have a very interesting point when you mentioned mindset, and that is more important than skill set. Next, I want to discuss like the type of job roles that may be increasing in popularity in the blockchain space. For example, because of how data on blockchain is fundamentally transparent and trackable, on-chain analytics is something that is pivotal for many entities to make informed decisions. And to support such operations, some will think that roles like in data science might be an important one for blockchain firms. So I would therefore like to ask the panel to share maybe what kind of roles in the blockchain space do you think will become increasingly important and have a sustained demand for students to fill in the coming years. This is open to anyone who wants to go first.
Let me go first. Yep. I think very clear. If
Arthur, I think you got muted.
Yeah, I don't think there's any pure Web3 engineer. You have to start from like a Web2 space, like a normal programming language, like a computer science architecture. So I think this demand is actually increasing the fastest. Almost all of our portfolio company are facing shortage of experienced software engineer that understand both the Web2 and Web3 space. If you only coming from a pure Web2 background, you usually take 3 months, sometimes up to 6 months for people to get familiarized and experienced enough to be able to work and contribute in a positive manners. But yeah, if you have a good understanding of Solidity and Rust, you will, to the level that you can independently contribute to a project, you're definitely gonna be able to find a very good employment opportunity in the space, and this is definitely not going away in the next 3 to 5 years. Yep, I think this is definitely where the sustained demand will increase, and the one that I have the highest conviction in, because this is what I see from all of our portfolio company hirings. Yep.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. Developers are constant in demand, but I mean, touching on the non-technical side, really depending on the company. Specifically for mine, we are looking as the team grows, as the developer team grows, we do need very strong PMs. So product managers, I think in particular, are very important for companies like us, especially at this size where you're above 100, right? And these guys can make or break your products. And typically these guys, they don't come from crypto companies. They come from the traditional companies because I think to Arthur's point, yeah, we need experienced guys from the Web2 companies coming into the space as the industry matures. There will be new demand being created for different functions in companies. So I think earlier we also touched on, how data science roles are getting more important. And I think I just had this conversation earlier where larger crypto companies are creating dedicated data science teams to fill their needs.
Yeah, I agree with both of them. And maybe the only thing to add is when it comes to choosing what do you study during college year, I think just looking at the 3 panelists here, we're all coming from different backgrounds, some engineering, some business, some finance. I think it's an indication that there's no really like a blockchain major, so to speak, right? I mean, blockchain itself is multidisciplinary. I guess I just want to encourage the audiences, if you're still students or whatnot, then the best way to start is just starting. Don't get track of, okay, I have to study data science in order to get a job in blockchain. I don't think that's the case. Get yourself familiar. Like Yusho mentioned, like crypto native requires experience in the crypto space, which basically means you have to interact, play with these products, find the satisfactory part, and also the parts that requires improving. Yeah, so that's all for me.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I think people in the crypto space typically come from very different backgrounds. So apart from those, I think you guys have mentioned quite a few technical skills like Rust, Solidity, and also soft skills. But are there any other like important pointers or skill sets that students should take note of in order to succeed in the space?
Yeah, I guess I can start. I think one good advice that I hear from another guy, this is the advice for PhD student, but I think it did apply for engineers or maybe researchers in the blockchain space. It definitely helped me a lot. So the quote goes, you should try to learn something about everything and everything about something. So basically, blockchain has many frontiers, right? And it's impossible for you to keep up with all the frontiers, especially nowadays. It's growing really big and multifaceted. So, but you should at least get something out of it. As an engineer, you shouldn't be just head in the sand, coding, not knowing the user experience and the UI, or the product positioning. At least you need to know something about it. Also, like you have to know a bit about finance, for example. And also, the second part of that quote is you have to know like almost everything about something, which means that you need to have your like strong suit. Like you have to, be particularly good at something. I think as an engineer, that would definitely help. For example, if you are a EVM wizard, as I mentioned, then there's definitely a place for you at many teams. If you're good cryptographers, that also applies. So to summarize, just learn something about everything and everything about something.
Yeah. For me, I was doing engineering at school, right? I think if you guys are in engineering, one pro tip would be pick up as much diverse mods as possible, right? Especially if you want to get into the crypto space, because or if you want to start your own company, right? This could be taking courses in econs, finance. Design, accounting, econs, because yes, it gives you the one-on-one. Maybe you can contribute in tokenomics, finance, because yes, you have to know like DeFi or most of the applications built today are around finance. Design in particular, helps with user interaction, and I think personally for me, because I started a company, things like accounting, the one-on-ones are very, very important. Either way, after school, you probably have to pick it up again. So to echo Alex's point, be as all-rounded as possible. Equip yourself with as much knowledge as you can, because that will be very beneficial once you start work.
Arthur, you got any other things to add?
Yes, I would say I'll be more practical. There is a very good tweet thread you should go and follow. It's by Naval. Naval Ravikant is a very famous angel investor in Silicon Valley. I think this is his most popular tweet thread called "How to Get Rich Without Getting Lucky." Just go and read that, and I think it's applicable to everywhere, including crypto. So yeah, those are the skills that you can learn and be more helpful in your future career. And spend less time on TikTok, spend more time on Twitter. Helps a lot as well. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, just to remind everyone, Alex was in EEE, Electrical and Electronics Engineering. Yusho was in Mechanical Engineering, and Arthur had Economics and Entrepreneurship background. So it's really a diverse they have really diverse backgrounds, but everyone can find their own niche in the crypto space. So I think because we are kind of running short on time, I'll just have I'll just end off with a few questions, like one or two more questions. The second last question being, if you could go back in time to a point where you just started getting into the blockchain, what's one piece of advice you would give your younger self? Just an interesting question for anyone who wants to start first as well.
Yeah, sorry. Arthur, are you going?
No, you can go ahead. I need to think.
Right. I guess maybe one piece of advice I will give myself is do more first principle thinking. And some background is that in 2018 to 2019, I spent tons of time doing a lot of plasma related research. Plasma is one of the scaling solution. And I would say the community as a whole wasted a lot of energy on that because it turns out to be a dead end because of data availability issue. But we all believe that was the future. I think there's a lack of first principle and more rigorous, more academic type of analysis there. It's just a very ad hoc design, by Vitalik, and we just took it as something that's definitely doable. And so I would give myself the advice that do more first principle thinking. Try to avoid echo chamber if possible.
Yeah, I think for me, I would say don't be afraid to try new jobs and careers that's not related to your piece of paper, right? I came from a mechanical engineering background. I didn't really like it, but at least when I studied Mac Engine, I knew that I didn't want to work in Mac Engine, right? Right after I just followed my heart, went to start a company, and crazily it was a crypto one, right? But yeah, I think now the crypto industry it's much more mature, right? So why not give yourself a shot.
Yeah, I actually don't have any major things I want to change, and I don't have any major advice, I would say. Yeah, I tend not to dwell too much on the past. I think I've done the best I could given the previous circumstances and context I was in. Yeah. If I were to give it to other people at a younger self at that point in time, I would say, as a young people, young adults, it's generally better to aim high and take the risk when you have the capacity to do so, because all your responsibility and obligation will come to you when you hit a certain age. So it's really better to take the risk when your opportunity cost is lower. Yeah. And you will actually make a pretty big difference to your future. And it's fairly obvious when I see the difference between myself and my peers at that point of time, although I only graduated for 6 years. Yep.
All right, thank you. And finally, one last question for everyone. So in 30 seconds, what is the main message that you would like the audience to take away from tonight's session?
Join crypto.
Okay, I'll go for it. I think if you're an ambitious person that enjoys active participations and are also open-minded, and you're also entrepreneurial, there's actually no other better place to get involved in than crypto, Web3, and blockchain right now, because this is I would say the only industry where you're not that penalized from your background and your profile. Like, you are, no matter what your religion is, your race, where your nationality is, yeah, you are. I would say it's the least criminalizing industry in general. Yep.
Yeah, maybe I can just add on a little bit, right? I mean, since all of you are inside this chat, I assume that you guys are 1 foot in, or at least you are thinking of joining the space. Just statistically, the past number of hires that we have made were all from traditional finance, and these guys are 5 years, 10 years in, and they're more than happy to come over into our space without expecting a bump. in the salary. So these are real life data. It speaks for itself. There's really no hype around it. People just want to come into our space because there's much more we can do. That I think key thing is there's a lot of innovation happening in the space, and people are generally excited about it.
Yeah, I don't know what would be the main message, but I guess probably execute and learn more. I guess like learning is the best way for you to distinguish what's a hype, what's real. And I came into the space only knowing very little about the space as well. Even as an electrical engineer, I don't have all the backgrounds of like distributed computing, etc., or consensus algorithms, but I pick it up along the way. And I still remember back in 2017, many papers or white papers coming out claiming that they have solved the dilemma in consensus, and the best way to distinguish whether they are BS or not is to really get to know and learn more. So I think as a fast-paced space, just keep learning.
All right. Thank you, all panelists. With that, we have reached the end of the hour. So it's time for some interactive Q&A from the audience. So if you have not yet keyed in your questions, there are a lot of questions here under Slido. So we see that the highest voting one that we have, I think this should be targeted at Yusho. What are some of the problems that Coinhaco is facing? Are the withdrawal of cryptocurrency such as ADA due to liquidity issues?
They're not giving you a chance, Yusho.
Oh man, anonymous, come on, own up, who's that?
Blacklist, no more referral.
Great questions. All right, I think a lot of people don't see the underlying reason why there are issues such as withdrawals of ADA, DOT, etc. Reason being, one, now that we are licensed entity, we have to know where coins. To put it really simply, we need to know where coins are coming from, where it's going to. Right. With that, that means the on-chain forensic tools have to be supporting these networks, right? And specifically for ADA, DOT, Solana, for example, to be fully compliant with the regulations here, we can't. The current services or service providers in the market do not have the ability, or most do not have the ability to do it. Therefore, which explains why we cannot allow the deposits and the withdrawals of the coins. Yeah. Other than that, problems. Startups. As usual, we face problems. I think key thing now is the talent crunch. We are looking to hire aggressively on multiple fronts, especially the developer team. So if you are a aspiring developer that wants to work in crypto/tech, feel free to drop us a line.
All right. So moving on to the next question. What's the next innovation or trend that the panel is looking at? Is it still the metaverse, or do you see more layer 1 or 2 infrastructure?
Well, okay, I can speak from my perspective. The innovation that I've been looking at are mostly on layer 2 rollups that are coming out, more ZK rollups, as well as private smart contracts, which is not possible before. But Alio team, so Alio is a startup that coming out of a few Berkeley students, and they achieve a private smart contract, but it's not that scalable. So how do we do it? It will be very interesting. I don't have much knowledge in metaverse. I mean, I kind of get the concept, but I'm not a gamer, and I'm still trying to learn my way through what this future of metaverse would look like. But yeah, my answer has also always been like, how do you increase the privacy and security of these systems and protocols? Yeah, so compliance, compliant private protocols and infrastructures will be the things that I'm looking at. Yeah, I think privacy is very important because if we want to ever go mainstream, like if my parents would ever use it, or the supermarket downstairs are accepting payments on blockchain, you have to provide privacy. Otherwise, business intelligence, like who your supplier is and how much daily transaction volume is, will be leaked, and that's not ideal for mass adoption. Yeah, that's my answer.
For me, I actually think metaverse is a overly generic term right now. That doesn't mean different things to different people. So I actually avoid using this term as much as possible. I think most people's imagination of metaverse is like a VR, like Ready Player One kind of reality, which I think would not happen in the next 2 to 3 years. If you pay attention to the latest video Facebook release, that metaverse is horrendous. I would not want to spend a single second there. I don't see how is it fun at all. Like, why do I want to look like myself, which is actually not as good looking as my true self in the metaverse? That makes zero sense. I think the closest things we get to a metaverse, which is actually like Roblox or Minecraft kind of world, where the younger generation, especially the Gen Z, are already spending increasing amount of their time and grew up along with it. So I think for some Gen Z, Discord, Roblox, and Minecraft is their metaverse already. And for some hardcore MMORPG players, the MMORPG game is their metaverse, like Final Fantasy 14, World of Warcraft. Yeah. So I'm actually more excited by the metaverse that is shaped by a very engaging game with their own in-game economy that is almost as active as like a real-world economy where people really want to participate. Imagine like a more immersive and engaging World of Warcraft or Final Fantasy 14. I think that is something I'm very excited about, being a gamer myself. Yep. Yeah, that's it.
Yusho, you got anything from your side? All right. Then we'll move on to the next question for Alex. It's quite a technical one. What are your thoughts on full homomorphic encryption and how feasible will it be implementation-wise?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So for those uninitiated, fully homomorphic encryption is basically you can compute on encrypted data. So say you have medical records and you want to compute, like say, come out with a machine learning model out of it, training on this data, but you do not want to review the data. So what you will do is you encrypt the data first, send it to Google or Microsoft, let's say, and then they will train their model on their end on the encrypted data. And without revealing what the original private information is. So the question is how feasible it will be, the implementation wise. First of all, it's not only feasible, it's already out now. There are good implementation. When I was working at IBM Research, IBM has some of the best folks in fully homomorphic encryption. And there's a library in C++ called Leap FHE. It's quite efficient, but there are a lot of restrictions. Even if it's called fully homomorphic encryption, the performance is not quite there yet, because usually you're using lattices to compute, for these FHE protocol, but these lattices have usually does not have the properties of. They only have very restrictive properties. For example, you may have additive homomorphism or multiplicative homomorphism, but sometimes for some function it's not algebraic. For example, hash function usually is not algebraic, like SHA-2, SHA-256. Those are not algebraic functions. Then for you to come up with the fully homomorphic encryption on top of for hash function would be prohibitively costly. So I would say we are one foot in, the realm of practicality when it comes to FHE. The caveat being that it's only restricted to certain types of compute, right? If you're training certain machine learning model, then this machine learning model usually have a lot of like ReLU type of non-algebraic, neurons. So it will be really, really hard. But if it's a simple algebraic neural net, then it's possible for you to apply FHE on it. So that's my answer.
All right, thanks, Alex. Moving on to the next question. Do you have any advice or recommended courses, learning path for those who want to explore deeper in the crypto blockchain industry? I think Arthur earlier highlighted a particular channel or podcast. Maybe Arthur, if you could put it in the chat, it would probably help them to find it more easily. But for the rest, if you have any other resources to share.
I would say when I started, one of the books that helped me tremendously is the Princeton test book. It's called Bitcoin and Cryptocurrency Technology. After reading that book was kind of the pivotal moment why I think it's really interesting tech and have a lot of good theoretical foundation. So I would definitely recommend that book. I think the author also posted a series of YouTube videos, lectures on that. And also, let me do some shameless promoting here. You can also sign up for the unrestricted electives in NTU if you're NTU students, especially if you're computer science students. I think it's CZ4153 or something like that. You can search it. We cover a lot of topics from the basics of Bitcoin, Ethereum to security, scalability, privacy, all kinds of topics. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think personally for me, I'll recommend a book called Bits and Blocks. It's written by a local crypto guy that's been in the space for a long time. That will give you a 101, and it's friendly for non-technical people. It could be people who are already working in banks, traditional or not industries, or even students. So I think apart from that, I'll just roam around Twitter and just keep reading and reading. And I think that should suffice.
For me, on a more practical level, depends on what segment you're interested in. Unfortunately, I don't think there's that. Okay, unless you're interested in the more technical side, like Alex suggested, if you want to coming in from more general knowledge perspective, not that many good books on crypto right now because a lot of them are outdated. I would say one of the places with good resource is curated by S16Z. It's called the Crypto Canon by S16Z. S16Z is one of the most famous VC in the world. Anderson Horowitz. They curated a lot of the different good articles about blockchain in different category. You can take a look and start reading from there. For DeFi, there's a 2 newsletter to subscribe to, Bankless. You can go through all the old podcasts and articles and the Defiance. On a more practical front, you can read the Coinhako How to DeFi book, the first one and the advanced version. It's a lot of things to go through, but if you can finish both books, you can consider yourself the top 20% or 10% in terms of DeFi knowledge already. On NFT, there's a few good newsletters. I don't have the exact name, but you can search there's an article called an NFT Bible article, I think. Yeah, just go through it and read through the stuff. Another good update is the Messari Crypto Thesis for 2022. That is also a good read, even for industry professional like me. I also read that in full myself to cover some of the other area that I'm not focusing on as much. Yep.
All right. Maybe just one last question then. The next one is, where do you see crypto and NFTs in the future? Is it going to be sustainable or is it just a hype?
Well, I want to ask the question back to this guy, what do you think we are doing here then? If you think this is just a hype. Yeah, that's the only answer I have.
I think I saw Paul Graham tweet about it yesterday, saying that even if you don't believe in the current product of NFT, like digital asset is too big of a concept to pass on. So I think it would be arrogant to pass on as a digital assets as a as a general direction. Yeah.
All right. Yusho, do you still have time to answer a few more questions, or?
I've got something at 9:30, so got to wrap up if you can.
All right. Okay.
Or I mean, if there's any direct questions, you all can always ping me directly on via email or LinkedIn or something.
Yep. Sure. I think that will be all for the Q&A then. Try to wrap it up. So thanks so much for everyone for coming today. I hope you guys really enjoyed the time today with our panelists and the sharing session. At the very beginning, I told you guys that there will be a surprise for you guys, and that is that whoever that attended today's session will be giving out a POAP, which is a proof of attendance token. So an email will be sent out later on for whoever that has attended today's session, and you guys can claim it, and it will be on the XDAI chain. You guys can move it onto the mainnet, but I think it will cost some gas fees. But nonetheless, this is probably our first foray into getting like digital attendance, and we'll be using this for future, cross-uni events. So definitely hope you guys go and claim it and look out for the email. Yep, and with that, I think I'll just wrap up the session here then. Thank you all for coming today. Please follow us on our socials if you want to keep up with the few events that we have upcoming as well. And do give us feedback for today's session by scanning the QR code. Yeah. Thanks so much, guys, for coming.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Yusho, Arthur, and Reese.
Yeah, thanks for hosting.
Thanks.